Hello and happy Friday. For the second part today, we're going to talk about a question I get a lot, which is, what about all the cultures who consume high quantities of rice? The so-called Asian paradox. So we're going to talk about that in depth, but I want to kind of split it into a couple important sections. So first of all, let's talk about traditional Japanese and Chinese cultures, because what they're eating today is pretty different from what they used to eat. So going back and starting with what they used to eat. So what they used to eat before they became westernized is rice. That is very true. And they stayed thin and they didn't seem to have a diabetes problem. That's true too. But here's the catch. The catch is that they weren't consuming that many calories. And when you look at an example of what a family eating a traditional Japanese or Chinese fare is, we see rice. There's no question about it. But we see a lot of seafood. We see vegetables. And we see, and this is incredibly important, an absence of sugar. So, when you have an absence of sugar, an absence of all the processed foods, because we're eating the traditional fare, can you consume rice without messing up your system? Yes, you can. But when it's the main thrust of a high-calorie diet that comes along with processed foods, it becomes a problem. Welcome to modern-day China and Japan, and many other Asian countries we can think of. They've got a huge diabetes problem. They've got a huge obesity problem. Obesity in Asian cultures tends to actually become a problem at a much lower rate. So in other words, someone in America can be obese, have much less metabolic derangements than someone in Asia who weighs the same, has the same obesity. So we actually see obesity causing a problem at a much earlier stage in Asia. So the rice is now becoming a huge problem. And then we can actually talk about the South Asian paradox. So the South Asian paradox is actually the flip side of the question most people have. So the South Asian paradox is something that's been discussed in the medical literature for a while. And the paradox is this: how can this culture who eats such low fat have such a horrifying epidemic of obesity and diabetes? And of course, it's no longer a paradox, because now what we know is low-fat diet is the cause, the answer to the paradox. So when we see people talking about cultures that eat all of this rice all the time, number one, the cultures that still exist today that are consuming a lot of rice are the poor countries, and their total calorie intake every day is very low. So rice may make a big quantity up of it, but the calories through the day are incredibly small. When we see cultures that are not suffering from hunger, who are wealthier, what we see is the rice is now causing a big problem. I'll tell you, this is brilliantly illustrated in a picture book called Hungry Planet, and I'm going to put a link on it today. But what you can see is that the countries, again, that are consuming rice as a larger proportion of their diet are those who just aren't consuming that much overall. The countries that are consuming rice along with other things are suffering from the same problems we are. Thanks so much. Keep the questions coming.